Hello. I'm so glad for you to join me. So today we're going to finish our first ever crochet project, which is our small purse. If you've decided to make a fairly medium size or large size purse, that's fine as well. But I think the first thing we need to do is to go back to what we were doing last week, which is making the flap or what we used to cover our purse. So just to give you a rundown. Um, so for this last part 3, we're going to keep our how do we keep our project on the straight? Okay, whatever that means. If you want it to go a certain direction, what do we do about that? And then we're going to finish our project by making by sewing a button and then making your buttonhole. Okay, it doesn't really matter what order that is, the last two. Um, and also, I also want to discuss with you that another way that you can find the decrease in single crochet in a pattern is by this acronym SC2TOG, or single crochet two together, uh, or it could be decrease single crochet. All right, so how do we keep our project on the straight? So let's take a look at what we were trying to do last week. We had a very good question from last week from Elaine. So thank you very much for that. The question being is, the issue actually is she's having a wonky flap. Like one side is lopsided compared to the other, so it's not symmetrical. So this one is symmetrical. Okay, it's not only a problem for slanted part of your project. When I first started crocheting, even the straight part supposed to be of my project was wonky. So what do we do about that, or how do we ensure that our project is on the straight, quote unquote? Okay, so I have a piece here. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to keep this on the straight, and also when we are tapering using decrease single crochet or SC2 together, how do we keep our project in a shape that we want? Okay, and for me, the easiest method is by using stitch markers. Okay, so I'm going to do one row of single crochet for the next row. So of course we have to create a turning chain for this next row. So this is just for a demonstration purpose. And I'm going to make my first stitch, my first single crochet stitch. After that first stitch, I'm going to, as you can see, I took out my crochet hook. I'm going to insert, or I'm going to attach one stitch marker on the first single crochet. So that's the rule of thumb. Put the stitch marker after you make the first stitch for that row. And then, as we did in most of our series for this small purse, we just simply make single crochet across. Okay. So for our original instructions, I made you do 20 stitches for every row. Okay, so this is just an example, just to quickly to show you how to keep it on the straight. And then after that, you make another row of single crochet, turning chain, your first single crochet, take that off, and then you attach another stitch marker. Okay, so now for this project, you have one on each end. And then follow the same instructions. You single crochet across this particular row. Okay, and this is where it's going to be apparent why this stitch marker is useful. So that stitch marker there tells you that that is the last space that you're going to create your stitch. Okay, so it marks that stitch. That's the last one. So you need to make that last single crochet there. Okay, and then do another row. So turning chain, your first single crochet stitch, or whatever stitch that's in the instructions, you make that first stitch, and then you attach your stitch marker. Okay, all right. And then we create another row of single crochet across. Using stitch markers saves you time from counting your stitches. I always lose count, always, and I have to go back, count from the beginning, and that's kind of bothersome. Yeah, so stitch markers are so useful, saves you time. It might feel a bit clunky the first time you do this, or first few times you do this, but it is so useful. If you don't want a wonky piece, then stitch markers are the way to go. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to taper to make our flap. Okay. So my instructions were to decrease single crochet on every end. Okay, so one decrease on this end and another decrease on the other end, or SE2 together on each side for every row. Now, some people, they prefer to decrease every other row. That's fine as well. It depends on how you want the tapering to look like. If you want it severe or do you want it a bit more gentle. Okay, so let's just follow the pattern that I've been using. So the instructions are, of course, we still have the turning chain. Okay, and then SC2 together, or decrease single crochet. So our first stitch is to decrease single crochet. So this is our first stitch. And then we attach the stitch marker after you do that stitch, yeah? Which is you decrease single crochet. And then from last week again, we single crochet across until we get to the last two stitches. Okay, so how do we know? Oh, we have a stitch marker right here. So that's the last stitch, and this is the second to the last stitch. So these two spaces, you're going to do decrease single crochet, or SC2 together. So you need one more regular single crochet, and then decrease single crochet at the end. Okay, all right. So we'll do this again. So that's the next row. We're going to do our turning chain and then decrease single crochet. So that's the first stitch for this row. We attach the stitch marker on that first stitch. Okay, where does Cris do this? This is where we do it. This is where we attach it, right through there. Okay, right through there. Just look for that V, for that inverted V. Okay. And then single crochet stitch across until you get to the last two spaces, the last two stitches right there. Okay. See, stitch marker is so useful. No need to count back, just to find out where you are. Okay, so decrease single crochet. Hi Elaine, I just saw your comment. Turning chain, and then again decrease single crochet, which is the first stitch for this next row, and then attach your stitch marker. So just keep doing that. You keep doing that until you get to a point wherein you're happy with the length of your flap. Okay. So you might want your flap to be as long as mine. You want it could be that it's shorter than mine, but you should also consider the width of the end of this. Okay. So this looks like an envelope. Yeah. Nice shape of an envelope. If you want your taper to be more severe, what you would do is you would decrease more severely, which means instead of having two incidences of decreased single crochet, you can make maybe three incidences, or it could be four. Yeah, that'll be more severe. If you want it to be more gentle, then you just maybe alternate per row where you decrease. Yeah. Okay. Now, so any questions about that? So that's for me, that's the best way. It's the beginner's way. It's the easiest way, the most economical way to make sure that your project is on the straight. Okay, whatever that means. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make your buttonhole. Right. So this is how I would do it for this particular project. I would look for the middle two stitches. Okay, so for my case, I have how many stitches here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the middle two would be this and this. Okay. So I am going to slip stitch until I get to stitch number 3 here. So that's stitch number 1, stitch number 2, and stitch number 3. So you turn your work in whatever appropriate direction you are. So if you're left-handed, you're working to the right. If you're right-handed, you're working to the left. Okay. There's no need for you to do a turning chain. Okay. If you want to, you can, but I don't think you need to. If you are quite tight with your stitches, then I would recommend you do a turning chain. But if you're more relaxed like me, there's no need. So slip stitch until you get to the third stitch. So that's the first, second, and third. So make sure you don't slip stitch tightly, because you know what happened last time that we did that. It was quite wonky. Yeah. Okay. So when you get to the third slip stitch, you're going to do a series of chain stitches. Now it will depend, of course, on how long your buttonhole that you need. So I'm just gonna sort of just estimate. Maybe I might need like for this size hook and for this size thickness of my yarn, maybe 5 is enough. We'll see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, 5. It will also depend on the button that you're going to be using. So as I said last time, this is not really a button, but it's the kind that I use for the crochet purse that I have on my website. You can have a regular button, but this button here is quite small in terms of the, like, you know, where you put it through. Even though it's on the, like, it's on the wide side, it's fairly slim. Okay, so I think that's enough. Yeah. So how do I judge it? I'm going to connect this chain to the next stitch here. You could do it trial and error as well. It does not take long to adjust it. Sorry for the noise. My scissors is going here and there. So after you do the appropriate amount of chain stitch, I would go like for 5. Okay. If you're using a DK yarn or like a very thin yarn, I would say maybe chain 7 or even 10. So after you do that chain, you slip stitch on the next stitch. So this is where we are. You're going to slip stitch here. Okay. And then I want you to turn your work and then work a single crochet on every chain that you just made. So insert your hook to the next stitch and then do your single crochet. So if I made 5 chain stitches, then I need to have 5 single crochet stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And just to make it look more complete than what it looks like right now, I would slip stitch in the beginning of that chain. Okay, and then fasten off. So you make a knot by drawing a loop, cutting it. So let's take a look. So that is my buttonhole. To be frank, I would not use chunky wool for this sort of project. Okay, just because it's so big, and you end up also, if you're using chunky wool, you end up using a larger hook, which means larger gaps. Yeah. Okay. And then you fold it. This is how to determine where you're going to put your button. Yeah, you fold it, make your adjustments. And then you put your button where you think is appropriate. So for this one, if it's like this hole, you push it through like that. And then this is where your stitch marker actually comes in handy as well. That's where my button should be. So I'm just going to steal the stitch marker that I just used previously. This is where I want it to be. So I'll take that button off. Put it here. Okay, so that's where I want my button to be. Yeah, and then you sort of like ask, is that really the middle? You can measure with the measuring tape, or you just fold it in half. That's not quite the middle. So I'm just going to adjust it, put it here. Okay, all right. And then if you have with you a yarn needle, go get your yarn needle. If not, go get some. You will need at least one. Okay, if you are, if you're crocheting things, this is quite useful. It took me a year to finally get a yarn needle after starting crocheting, just because I was just such a cheapskate, but it doesn't cost anything. Yeah, how did I survive without a yarn needle? Who knows? But this is so useful. And then you get same color yarn. If it's easier for you, you can use a thinner weight yarn, but I would just do as you would normally do with, let's say, a regular needle and regular thread. Is, you add a little bit of magic to the yarn, and then you roll it up between your fingers. If you know what I mean by magic. Okay, you attach that, and then what I would do is sometimes I would start from the front, and then just work that starting stitch later. Yeah, just fix it later. Okay, right. And then actually you do need to stitch. You do need to put your button right in there. Okay. So with stitching with yarn, you do need to cut a bit of length. It's not like you can just stitch it from the yarn ball or from the hank or whatever you call it, from the skein. Yeah, you do need to get a bit of length, and you don't actually need a lot. Not for the button. The button is so small. You don't need a lot. Okay, so if I'm assuming that most people know how to stitch, even if it's just rudimentary simple stitches. It does not have to be perfect. And some people would even argue, oh, you're supposed to put like a loop around the beginning so it doesn't get too tight. Well, let's not get complicated. Okay, let's not complicate things. Okay. Don't know what happened to that. I think I went the wrong way. Okay, how many do I need? Oh, I know what happened. Maybe 3, maybe 5. Yeah, if I for the stuff that I sell, my rule of thumb is the more the better, so that people don't complain to me. Hey, that case that you sold me, it's oops, it's unraveled. Sorry, I hit the camera. It's unraveled. So I just put, okay, let's just stitch enough so that I can guarantee that it's not going to unravel. Okay, I think that's enough. And then you end up at the back with this needle. You end up at the back or the inside part of your project bag. And then you take your hook. You can take the stitch marker out now. You see this, the beginning part of your, yarn we used to stitch the button. If it's long enough, you can actually just pull it through like so. And then you knot it on the inside. You knot that on the inside. Now, if you are using a different button, it's a different case. Yeah, you would sew it like depending on, let's say, where the holes are. So this is the reason why I prefer this sort of pseudo button. Okay. All right. Are we finished? No, we're not, because we need to tidy up our work. And similar to what we did last time. See, but that's quite short. Yeah, that's quite short. So you cannot use your yarn needle to clean that up. So what I would do is I would go over and get my crochet hook set and get a smaller sized hook so I can weave this loose end into my project. Okay, so I wouldn't weave it through there because these are quite big gaps. This is the reason why I don't want to use chunky wool for this sort of project. This is just really for demonstration. Now, a good thing about chunky wool is that when you demonstrate, you can actually see parts of a stitch where you can weave your loose ends. So like here, you can weave it through there. Yeah. So the reason why I'm using a smaller hook size is it's easier to fit this smaller hook size through these stitches. These are my secrets. I did not learn this through YouTube. I just figured it out myself. So you go through these stitches. It's just really all about strategy, really, like an art. Where can I hide my stitches? Where can I weave them through? You see what I did there? So I'll give you another one, stitch them through. So that bit here, it's similar to this bit here. If you can see your stitches, see, you can sort of insert your hook through there. So you can hide your sins by hooking or drawing through these loops there. Yeah. And you don't even have to hide the whole thing because there's the magic of the scissors. Just snip that bit there. Okay. And then fold your project and see if it all works out. All right. Here is our first project together, our purse. As you can see, this is a bit wonky. So this one here is smaller than that one. It's because, as you know, we used a slip stitch to join this end of our purse, and we use single crochet at this end. Yeah. So if you're like me, I would prefer using single crochet to join. All right. Any questions? Oh, thanks, Elaine. I hope your cell phone case worked out. Yeah. And I hope the wonkiness was solved by our little video a few days ago and also this video. Um, so next project, I'm still considering what we're going to do, but I know for a fact that I want to teach you how to of all the many things I want to teach you. I want you to learn how to do a double crochet, because actually that is one of my favorite stitches, because it's the one of the most economical stitches that you can use to make anything, really, a scarf, a hat, even a dress. Yeah, I've made a few dresses for my currently 6-year-old daughter. um, so yeah, I would love to see pictures of your projects. Yeah, no matter how they look, if they're perfect or if they're a bit wonky, whatever it is, I would really love to see pictures of them. And if you're brave enough, you can send it through Facebook. We have a Facebook page, Cris Crochet Shop, and we also have a closed group. It's only for VIP members. I think the link should be in the description. It's called Cris Crochet VIP Club. So, Elaine, I would love to see your iPad case with or without your daughter's cell phone, or rather iPad. iPad. Yeah, anybody else who's brave enough to show your project, that would be lovely. Okay. If you have any more questions or comments or even suggestions what we can make next week, I am more than happy for any of these things, really. The interactions during this live stream is really, really useful. It's really, really helpful for everybody. All right. So that's for our first project. So I'll see you next week. Bye.